Guys, this video is brought to you by our friends at Lucy. Lucy was founded by Caltech scientists on a mission to reduce tobacco-related harm with a tobacco alternative that doesn't suck. As former smokers themselves, they were dissatisfied with traditional nicotine options, and they knew there's got to be a better way for adult tobacco users. It was a big challenge, but they did it with their innovative nicotine gum. 4 milligrams of nicotine in each piece. You can get a dose anywhere, anytime. I encourage my friends who smoke to choose Lucy gum over cigarettes or vapes for all the obvious reasons. As you know, nicotine is addictive, so use discretion. Lucy gum comes in 3 delicious flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. Visit lucy.co. Use the promo code Chael20. That's going to save you 20% off your entire order. That's lucy.co, Lucy.co, or click on the link in the description. Remember, guys, nicotine is addictive, so use discretion. So the big question, right? Anytime there's a show, Max fought's big question, what does Max do next? And I'm part of that, by the way. I'm part of that question. Even though I hate the question, I only hate the question because we never get an answer. Every press conference, without fail, somebody will ask Dana, and Dana will say the exact same thing that he said for the last 20 years, which is, we'll see what happens. Which is the only answer Dana can give at the pulpit that night. He's digesting so much. There's so many moving parts. He's high on excitement. He wants to try to contain that. But Dana cannot come out and say what's next for Max until he talks to Max. There's a doctor report out there. Every time you fight, you leave the cage, you have to decompress to the commission, which involves a doctor. If Dana hasn't spoke to for all Dana knows, Max has a broken hand. Just by example, I use Max, but Max has a broken hand that Dana didn't know about. Dana's going to go to the pulpit and say, yeah, Max is up in 3 months and here's his opponent. He can't do that, which is why Dana has to always say, let's see what happens. One of the reasons, multiple reasons Dana has to say it. I'm just offering you one that maybe you don't consider. That's not what happened this time completely. Dana said, and it was in conjunction with Volkanovski, and Volkanovski, of course, is scheduled to fight Ortega. Dana said, we have to make that match. Talking about Max, Volkanovski, we have to make it. Volkanovski, Max, part 3. I don't know what that means. This is Dana talking. I don't know if that means that we just put Max on ice. Hey, Max, your next fight is for the title, and we're just off we go. And Dana even said, even Volkanovski could not watch that fight and deny that we've got to do Volkan Max part 3. And I'm only speaking to you from a fundamental standpoint that we've only seen one fighter ever sit and wait for a title shot. Before that, when that title's already signed up to be contested. This, of course, is happening right now. Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou beats Rosenstrike. Dana says he's done. And this is with Cormier and Stipe still lingering. Still 5 weeks away. And Dana says Francis is done. He's taking on the winner. And we're going to wait however long we had to take. Now, that was from a level of responsibility. Not just to do the right thing and recognize Francis as the number one contender. It's also a responsibility because Francis will hurt you badly. Dana has a responsibility to put people in there who can reasonably and intelligently defend themselves. So it's a very unique spot. But now we're being told that that might be exactly what happens to Max, which is an equal compliment. Dana's looking at Max and saying, man, this guy is so good. I cannot float him around a division. I just can't. I have to put him in there with the top guys. So let's see if that all plays out. None of that is my point. I don't think that Dana, Max, Volkanov, anybody is bound to the thoughts that happened at that press conference. But I would reserve for you one other suggestion, which is simply Zabit. I mean, we can't deny Max forever. Dana's right. We cannot purely deny Max based on the ideology that Volkanovski already did this and did this again, and therefore is entitled to his own reign and run, which involves parity. I do think some consideration needs to be given to that. I think that consideration is being given right now. I think that's where you insert Brian Ortega. Should Volkanovski make it through that match? Does he then have to go into Max? I don't know. It sounds like he's going to have to. I think that I would agree with Dana when he says even Volkanovski can't deny that Max is the top contender. But I think many of those arguments that I'm making around making sure that Max also has some level of reward, some level of incentive, which is the fact that he is still eligible to compete for a championship, even though he's done it twice with the same guy. I think you have to show that same respect of that argument to Zabit and other guys, in all fairness. Your ear is out for a second, so we'll set him aside. I don't believe the Korean Zombie should be eliminated from conversation. I don't believe just because the Zombie got beat by Ortega that should eliminate him. It will remove him for the short term. Just offer for you 145 pounds. There's some very, very good matches. Max versus Zombie is one of those matches, in fairness. Not going to happen right now because of the loss that Zombie had. But what do you do with Zabit? I mean, you can only leave this guy out for so long. I made that suggestion to Ariel. And Ariel quickly pushed back and said that'd be a terrible thing to do to Zabit. Zabit has been removed from the sport for a year. You're going to bring him back and put him in 5 rounds with Max. I mean, he quickly threw water on it. So maybe you guys are the same way. Maybe you're with Ariel. You don't agree with me on it. I just feel as though Zabit has done some very heavy lifting. Zabit and Max have a common opponent, which is Calvin Kattar. And it would seem as though getting those two guys together makes a level of sense. I don't know how bullish I am on the idea that we just put Max out. Again, I don't feel that Max, as a reward for his success, should be punished with a layoff, which might be how he looks at it, whether it's intended or not. And we know that that's a real thing because that's how Francis is looking at things right now. Francis was thrilled the night he was named #1 contender. He was thrilled even though he had to wait, but had a very clear path that I'm going to take on the winner of these two, meaning Stipe and Cormier. But today, 5 months later, Francis is annoyed. So there's a few moving parts, right? We know one thing in life. Don't try to please everybody because it's impossible. But it's a tough question of what do you do with Max? And if I was to put in what I would like, I do like the idea that he can get back to Volkanovski. I do not love the idea that he's refused. And I think that we do that in conjunction with recognizing Volkanovski did something twice, got his hand raised twice, like it, disagree, whatever. He did it. Would like some fresh blood. I think if you gave a good look to a matchup with Zabit versus Max, I think that's hard to look away from.